time and help to do this in an efficient manner, right? We gotta, it's not the only thing we're gonna do today, so would you like to begin?
So, hi, everybody. I know you all know me, but I'm Reverend TJ. So glad that you all are choosing to spend your Saturdays out here with us, especially for such an incredibly important topic and very timely. So thank you all so much for taking time, energy, and effort to actually get here. As we do whenever we start anything in church, I think it's important that we start with prayer. So why don't we begin just taking a breath, centering ourselves. Okay. Let us pray. O God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, our only Savior, the Prince of Peace, give us grace seriously to lay to heart the great dangers we are in by our unhappy divisions. Take away all hatred and prejudice, and whatever else may hinder us from godly union and concord, that as there is but one body and one spirit, one hope of our calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God, and Father of us all, so we may all be of one heart and of one soul, united in one holy bond of truth and peace, of faith and charity, and may with one mind and one mouth glorify you, through Christ our Lord. Amen. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to our wonderful presenter, Mike. So thank you.
Thank you, DJ. Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Miners. I have the honor of being the son-in-law of Debbie Ross, member of the church. And really grateful that Christ Church has invited Brave Angels to conduct this series of workshops. This is the first of 3 that we have set up with you guys. It's a progression to address polarization, political polarization in the United States. So thank you for being interested in this. This is the first part. This starts with, the progression starts with depolarizing within, and then it moves to skills for disagreeing better. So it goes from internal work and work with people that we agree with to how we would interface with people who disagree with and maybe aren't inclined to hear the things that we have to say or the things that are important to us. And then that moves into our final thing, which happens, I think, 2 weeks after the second one, which is our red-blue workshop, Common Ground. And that brings ideally equal numbers of people who identify as red or conservative and blue or liberal, to share their values, concerns, and policy ideas in a really beautiful way that exposes the commonalities that we have, even though we seem to be so far apart. You see how we share values, how we share concerns, and how we share ideas for policies, but maybe have different ways of addressing those things, but that there are core similarities. So I encourage all of you to attend all 3 of them. It's beautiful, but any part of this that you can get, even if you have to leave halfway through this one, will be beneficial for the cause of depolarizing discourse in America. So thank you very much for being here. I am Mike, your moderator. And let's see if I can get this thing to advance. Oh, not advancing. Let's see. That's interesting. Pause. There we go. There's me. Soon you'll see Marianne. Marianne is the Illinois coordinator for Brave Angels and a longtime moderator. She'll be supporting me. I mean, that'll be great. When she gets here, she's stuck on the Edens behind an accident. So when that clears up, she'll make her way here. But she is a wonderful support, and will likely have anecdotes and things to add to what I'm presenting. A little about me. I live here in Winnetka. I'm a member of Winnetka Congregational Church. I live right out Sheridan at Willow. And so it's really wonderful when I found this come across the wire, looking for moderators for this series. I'll take that one. I have a bachelor's in communication studies from Northwestern. I've always been interested in interpersonal communication, even just as a as a hobby or an interest. I've always been kind of the peacekeeper person in my family. It's kind of a natural thing for me. And so in 2020, when my brother suggested a book called Nonviolent Communication to me, when we were lamenting the state of discourse in 2020, I said, I love the title of that book, and I devoured it. And in a day or two after you suggested it, and one of those things, I'm sure we've all had that experience when the book was over. I didn't want it to be over. I wanted more. I wanted to understand this more. I wanted to get, as I said, I wanted to get good at this. And so I signed up for a series of workshops conducted by a center started by the author. The author's name is Marshall Rosenberg, if anyone's interested. The title of the book is Nonviolent Communication. Marshall Rosenberg started a center for nonviolent communication that it's global and has training all around. So I dove into that training and started chain smoking workshops and didn't stop until 2.5 years later, when the woman I was taking the workshops from said, stop taking my workshops and start teaching them. And I said, okay. And so I started conducting workshops alongside her, and then on my own on a pro bono basis, just kind of word of mouth, helping people, individuals, and in rare occasions, corporate clients. There she is. There's Mary Ann Coulter.
It's the snack person. I'm sorry. Okay, there's traffic on the ends. So that, yeah.
We're right at the introduction part. So.
Okay, there we go. I'm gonna put up some snacks in the back. You're in very good hands with Mike.
Thanks, Mary Ann. So I've been training people in compassionate communication for about 3 years now. And I love that work so much. And right after the election, I was talking to some friends, and one of them suggested Braver Angels is an organization that might be a fit for me. I might be interested in it. I looked it up online and went, oh my God, that's exactly the right fit for me. I'm already doing this stuff. It's already a passion. And now we can just apply it to the political discourse environment that we have right now. I think what a great opportunity to be able to do something I love in the service of something I care about. So that's me in a nutshell. I've already told you about Mary Ann, and she's great. She's going to be very supportive, and it's going to be wonderful. So let's just start. Here we go. We want to depolarize. That's why everyone came here. You knew what the title of the workshop was, so I assume that everyone here is interested in depolarizing. So how do we do that? We at Braver Angels like to suggest that we start here. It can be really enticing, tempting to try to fix the other person, to recognize how everybody else is doing it wrong and find a way to fix them. How can I change their mind? How can I keep them? But you want to start here, because once we have this set up, it's amazing what is revealed about the other side that we maybe weren't considering while we were feeling very polarized. Okay, so I want to define polarization for you for the purpose of this workshop. Disagreement is not polarization. Those aren't synonyms. To be a functioning democracy, a functioning group of any diverse number of people who have come into the world from different perspectives, different histories, different emotional things that they deal with. When you're dealing with that, you want disagreement because you want to understand different perspectives so that you can come up with ideas that work for the whole. So disagreement is tremendously important for the functioning of a society. So we're not talking about agreement. This polarization means we have gotten to a place where we are so far apart that we can't hear each other anymore, that we don't experience each other anymore in a direct way. We've run to the hills and we've circled the wagons and we just imagine what's going on over there. And when we imagine what's going on over there without anything to contradict what we're imagining, and we talk to each other about that, we just amplify the stories that we are coming up with on our own. Now, those stories may be accurate, but they may not be accurate. You want to make sure. And we can't do that unless we're in contact with the other with the other side. So depolarization is reaching back across to have direct experience of the other side, so we can check the stories that we're telling ourselves about the other side. And I can tell you from experience, it's very revealing how much more peaceful, kinder, more reasonable people prove to be when you can interface with them in ways like the ones that we're going to tell you. I'm going to give you some things to think about, some approaches that you can use. They're not the only ones. These are ones that work pretty well through many workshops over the years. But if you have better ones, we encourage you to use them, because what we want is that connection. So we're going to start not by talking across the political divide. That's our third step here, is the red blue workshop. Today we're going to be talking how we talk to ourselves and how we talk to like-minded people. That's what we're doing today, okay? So there's four main things that come about when we're doing polarization that help to amplify polarization. Those are stereotyping, dismissing, ridiculing, and contempt for the other side. These things happen naturally, by the way. These aren't the things that awful people do. Okay? These are human responses to stressful situations. And our political environment right now is stressful for pretty much all of us. And these are just things that human beings tend to do. The reason they tend to do them is because they give us artificial unity. They can tell us that we're the smart ones, we're good, and they're bad. And that's comforting. So we do it to comfort ourselves. It also can tell us the story and can support the illusion that if we just vanquish the other side, everything will be okay. And then when we retreat to those silos, then we end up amplifying and cleaning out each other. So that's not really what we want to do. So what if we were to figure out ways to address these? And that's what I'll present to you now. The goals of this workshop is to understand that you have the potential to polarize everyone here in this room. And it's not a criticism. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you're a human being. And just to recognize how you can contribute to polarization. Ways to counteract that. And then we'll practice it. It'll be one time. We're not going to be experts at this at the end of this workshop, but at least you'll have some exposure to it, be able to do it yourself. And then we'll talk about ways to talk to people on your own side when things start to move in polarization direction, when the conversation is steering towards polarization, just ways to maybe steer it towards something that brings understanding and a willingness to hear the other side. So this will be our agenda. We're going to start with recognizing inner polarizer, go to strategies. We'll exemplify some non-polarizing talk, take a little break, do some skills. Marianne and I will do a little demonstration a couple times. And then you'll practice it, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, so we're going to start by assessing your inner polarizing. So take a look at this. So your answers are going to be often, sometimes never. And this is actually in your sheets too. So you can, if you want to look down or look up, either way is fine. So take a look at this and just consider. You don't need to share this with anybody, your answers, just recognize inside. We will talk about them and share what you're comfortable with. But just notice your responses to these questions. How often do I find myself thinking about those people on the other political side without much regard to the variation among them? Usually we're aware of great variation within our own group, but often consider the other side to be homogenous they all think this, or they all do that. How often do I find myself assigning mainly self-serving or negative motives to the other group and mainly positive motives to my group? How often do I find myself focusing on the most extreme or outrageous ideas and people on the other side, thereby making it hard for me to see how a reasonable person could remain in that group? How often do I find myself comparing the worst people on their side with the best people on my side? And how often do I feel a rush of pleasure with friends when we ridicule those crazies on the other side? Again, all human things to do. Is not the purview of evil people. It's just what we all do from time to time. I can find that I do that. Now take a look at your little chart there and check in with yourself about these. Which of the following is closest to your overall emotional attitude toward the majority of the people who support the other side? When you think of them as a block. Is it hate? They're enemies out to destroy the country? Is it disdain? They're ignorant and should know better? Pity? Well-meaning, but for them, they're duped. Basic respect, they make contributions, even if they're mostly off base. Respect and appreciation, they make unique and yet necessary contributions. Okay. Take a short time to go over your answers. Assess your degree of inner polarization. Keep a focus on yourself and your own attitude as you think about your answers to these questions that we just asked. It's an exercise in humility, not in bashing the other side. So after you think about it for a moment, what we'd like to do is to break into groups. And we'll do that in a moment. I'll just speak about the groups that we're going to go into. Here's some guys. When you get in your group, find a group with people that you don't know very well. If you came with somebody, sit with someone you don't know very well. Now maybe you're all in the church together, so maybe you're all very intimately. If that's the case, just disregard that. But you know, just so everybody knows everybody here. I gather really well.
We can find people we know less well.
Yeah, find people you know less well. See if you can find the people you know the least, and you'll learn something about them. And just think we're gonna go to groups of three. How many are there? 3, 5, and until 13, 14. Well,
Three-ish.
3-ish, you know, group of 2 is fine. And when you go in your groups, just a reminder that not everybody in your group, don't expect everyone in your group to share all of your views and to go into that accordingly. So it's just a time for sharing what's going on with you. Let people have their say. No need to interrupt or correct anything anyone's saying, just absorb it, hear it, and then offer what you're sharing. Yeah, I think that's how we do it. It is take turn, be concise, just basic human interaction stuff. I trust you guys do that. Well, so now let's break into your groups now and spend a few minutes just discussing any surprises you may have had when you're looking at this list of questions, how you're processing it with your group members.
Could you go one page back so we can have that to look at? Yeah, thank you.
And what I'm asking you to share is what it was like to go through that self-assessment, what you may have found. Okay, what you noticed about yourself and your potential for creating the polarizing situation. Okay?
Why are you using the 2-minute timer? We have 7 minutes, right? Or a 2-minute per person?
The 2-minute time, let's just consider your ideas. Like we decided on you guys taking care of that. Okay, come on back. Come on back. I love that we're so engaged in conversation. That's beautiful. This is actually, it's in many ways more important than anything that I have to share with you. And I do have some things to share with you. Let me just check with the group. I can be very strict with the time that we're doing it. But I would do that only to serve you. If you'd like it to be looser, then that's fine with me. My whole day is wide open. But if there's quite a bit of content here, and we will be breaking into groups periodically. If we add 5 minutes to each one, we'll end up adding a half hour or 40 minutes to our workshop. So my suggestion is to be fairly tight.
I just have a question. Are we gonna get to keep talking to the same group?
Yes.
Or are you gonna move us around?
The intention is just to talk with the same group.
Okay, so we'll get to pick up what we need
You
to.
can pick up if you need to, yeah, if you need to just finish one last point in the next breakout, that'll work too.
Thank you.
So would it be okay if I keep it sort of strict?
Yes.
Yeah.
With a little reasonableness? Okay.
So we end pretty much on time.
Once we have a revolt.
Yeah, unless, you guys are in charge, if you want to take over, that's totally fine.
No.
I'm here for you. Okay, so who would share with the whole group then? Their experience of taking that self-assessment?
I will. I had to finally admit to myself that I'm very disdainful. I try to think I have an open mind, but I don't think I have as much of an open mind as I thought I did.
What a wonderful thing to notice.
Oh, well, I am very aware of the fact that a situation that I found myself in several weeks ago invited me to not defend, but to try to express an opinion against somebody who was just categorizing people on the other side.
Oh, great.
And I mean, since we're in this group, I will say that a lot of that comes from the fact that I'm looking through the lens of a Christian, and in particular an Episcopalian, and trying to recognize that from our theology, everybody is a beloved child of God.
Okay.
And when I said that, the reaction
Wait a minute,
was.
those we are sure, but those guys, yeah, right, sure, absolutely. I recently had a similar experience. Like, whoa, what are you holding? Wait, you're siding with them? That's what we're gonna talk about that actually today, so thank you. Anyone else? Okay,
I'll share.
please.
I realize that I fall a lot in pity, and I don't really like that word very much. But I've done so much reading about misinformation, and I
Yeah.
understand sort of how tribal our brains are.
Yeah.
That it's easy for any of us to fall into misinformation, and I don't like to think of myself as pitying people, but I definitely think, oh, that person has been caught up in all this misinformation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It stands to reason they're thinking the same thing about you.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly, but we're right. Yeah, exactly. Amazing. Okay, so how do you counteract that? Here's the thing. These are ways to edit that story. So political stereotypes. In order, these are the stereotypes that were presented to us in Brave Rangel's workshops. Hundreds of workshops. These are in our red blue workshops. We divide the groups into equal numbers of reds and blues. And in the breakout rooms, the reds, we will ask the reds, hey reds, what do you experience as the stereotypes laid upon you? And the opposite, that's the blues. What are the stereotypes you hear people forcing you into? So your various reds think that blues see them as racist, anti-immigrant, uncaring about those in need, homophobic, anti-woman, anti-science, Bible thumpers. And blues tend to think that reds see them as arrogant and elitist, in favor of big government, fiscally irresponsible, unpatriotic, anti-religious, anti-free speech, hypersensitive snowflakes. Again, it's the experience of that group of how they're categorized. There are some ways to counteract those. Recognize that the other side is more varied than you think, than the stereotype. But there's lots of different kinds of people within that group, or who have voted for that person, or who support that policy. Acknowledge that their political views and motivations are no doubt more complicated than the rhetoric you've been hearing, than what they say on the news channel that you watch. Recognize that the life experiences informing those views are likely different from your own. Develop relationships with a variety of people who differ from you. Relationships, and I love this phrase, relationships tend to undermine stereotypes. Read and listen to thought leaders on the other side who present complex arguments. If you want to go all out, you can work to develop an understanding of the history and current strands of thought on the other side. In the back of your handout, there's resources where you can look for things like that. So when you're looking to depolarize, it helps to make distinguish a few things here. Distinguish between positions and people. Support a particular candidate. The person who supports that candidate is not the candidate. Or supports that policy is not the policy. It doesn't. There's a distinction. The policies are a means to an end for that person. The way to support or enact their values, but not the values themselves. So we can hold two people who differ on a policy can hold the same value. One person thinks the way to embody that value is to support this policy. The other person sees another way to support the same value. And to distinguish between inconsistency and hypocrisy. Inconsistencies between values and behavior can be from blind spots. Just an honest missing of a distinction. And it also can be because of the competing values, the tension between competing values. I have two things I care about, but those things don't mix. And sometimes I pick one in one situation, sometimes I pick one in another, and I haven't resolved it for myself. It's not because I'm trying to be dishonest or to pull something over the wool over someone's eyes or to say something that I don't really believe. I actually believe it. But I'm a human being and I'm not perfectly consistent all the time. It doesn't mean that I'm intending to act badly. So what strategies have you found helpful to counteract stereotypes that you find yourself holding? Think about stereotypes you hold, not the other side. Again, we're depolarizing the day. How do you resist stereotyping others? Take a moment to reflect on this, and then we'll break into groups and share our reflections and pick up anything that was left over from the last time. Okay? So just take a moment and then join your group and discuss that question there. How can you resist stereotyping others? What are some ways you do it? We can learn from each other here. Okay? Go ahead. Go for an
You
hour.
could just look on.
Yeah, you can do it easily. You can do a whole course
Just these, or well,
on any one.
okay, that works too.
Couple people have commented on the glare.
Okay, who would like to share their insight?
It's a lot of insights.
Who would like to share? How do you resist stereotyping? For the benefit of the rest of the group.
Well, I'm not saying I do it, I'd like to do it.
Right, yeah.
But to ask open-ended questions and then just listen, like not listen to prepare to respond, but really listen.
I love what you said there. Not listen to prepare to respond, but to just listen. It's beautiful. We're gonna talk about that in a little
Easier
bit.
said than done.
You're ahead of me. It's great.
I think part of what we talked about is asking where is the person coming from? What kind of experiences they've had
Yeah,
that stimulated this position.
Yeah.
But we also talked about what makes that difficult, especially when there's a lot of resistance and animosity
yeah,
associated. So,
yeah. And I'll share, especially if I'm afraid of what I've heard them say. You know, someone's, oh my God, what's that gonna mean for the country and me and my loved ones? And it can be really hard to become curious in that moment. Anyone else?
Separating the stereotype from the person. I was sharing with my group that I immediately thought of. When you're disciplining a child. And you try to not attack the child as a person,
Yeah,
but the behavior.
right. Yeah, so there's this thing you said, but within the back of your mind, this is a good person, this is a person worthy of
Right.
love and understanding, but I maybe don't have the understanding that I want, and I looking a little further, yeah. Thank you. So then, now we're gonna talk about how to talk to the other people in a polarizing way. Few mistakes to avoid. Wing nuts, Bible thumpers, libtards, snowflakes, not helpful. These are things that tend to push people away, close ears, and extend the distance between you. Using the phrase "they all" or similar phrases, those Democrats, those Republicans, they're just the beginning of stereotyping. Painting all supporters of a politician with the same brush as the politician. Someone who voted for that candidate must believe everything that candidate believes. That's a mistake. If you go on a rant about a politician, which is reasonable and part of the discourse of a democracy, make it clear that you're not putting all of the supporters of that politician in the same box. Remember to criticize the idea or policy and not the motives of the person who's doing it. Which I constantly remind myself, I just can't know. Even if the person tells me what their motives are, they may be lying. I don't know. I'll never know what someone's motives are. So if I'm making up the motives, well, I have a choice about what I do with that. Maybe I could make up some motives that would explain it in a way that's peaceful for me, the experience rather than distressing. And for just a personal note, when I do that, it's amazing how often people live up to the motive that I assigned it up and I assigned them. So. And here's another thing, other things you can do to help. Remember, your own side isn't perfect. We all know this. And it's not dangerous to admit it. It actually helps bridge gaps in a positive way. Don't throw false criticism, right? The ones that you recognize. Yeah, we're losing that group because we haven't listened to them very well, for instance. Sometimes our leaders talk as if they have the final answer, and we know they don't. That kind of thing. You can find something positive about the other side, and it will not be a disaster to admit it. And again, it will build a bridge to the people. It doesn't mean you support the policy, it just means that you can see that there's something in there. Again, if it's honest, it's okay to admit it. I read a liberal or conservative commenter who said something interesting about this. Or I think their criticism has some validity, but I don't agree with it. And then thought experiment. If someone from the other side was listening to me talking right now, would they support what I'm saying? Or would they be offended or defensive? If I'm speaking about the other side in a way that I think if the other side was listening, they go, yeah, that's pretty accurate, then I'm doing my part not to polarize. And that doesn't mean not criticizing. It just means speaking it in a way that would be supported by the people represented by the people I'm trying to represent. Okay. What depolarizing strategy would you like to work on in the future? So here to go back, just real quick, run through them again, to not use pejorative labels. There's some mistakes to avoid. And here are some things to remember. And now join your small group and let's talk about, maybe you have another one, maybe you have something I didn't mention. What depolarizing strategy would you like to work on in the future? Okay. Go ahead. What depolarizing strategies would you like to work on for talking to people you agree with, people on your own side?
I think the piece about noting something positive about the other side is something that I try to do in general when I meet people, you know, I don't like their hairstyle or whatever, so I just note the positive,
You don't like the hairstyle, but maybe the color's good.
whatever, you know. Sort of just like, is that important about the person, so,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I love it. Anyone else? Okay.
And I also say,
Please.
because the eavesdropping one part too, yeah, I find it's hard for me to do because I do live in a bubble, I feel like. Teachers and stuff, so,
Sure.
so I would like a chance to do more in my life.
Yeah.
Eavesdropping.
I think one thing that I've been trying actually to work on is just to not be as judgmental, just let it go. Say what you have to say. And,
Yeah.
you know, listen.
Yeah, to listen and then to just speak what's true for you, let it sit there without any name calling or anything like that. Is that what you mean?
Or just not immediately judging.
Yeah.
Like, immediately saying, you know, that person's wrong, try to find out where they're coming from.
Anyone else? We have a break scheduled. Do we need it? Bio break, things like that, or
Snacks back there. He's ready,
there's snacks back there, so we can just keep moving on, or we can take a 10-minute break.
About 5-minute break.
Okay, 5-minute break? Let's take it, okay, we're gonna take a short 5-minute break. We'll be back here in 5 minutes. Okay. So, welcome back. We're gonna go, I'm gonna go through some things we can do. Conversations here and stereotyping, it's just a little more of the same type of stuff that we've been talking about. And just keep in mind, what we're talking about is talking to people you agree with politically. And that's what we're talking about. Next week will be about applying skills we're learning here. We'll recap some of the stuff we're learning here and then talk about how we talk to people on the other side. But this, reminder, this is the workshop called Depolarizing Within, and that means within here and within the group of people you agree with. So I'll show you some skills, and these are, as a caveat, these are, as you practice these going forward. I recommend you start one-to-one with people who are inclined to understand what you're saying. Then to groups, and as a dead last, online.
It's online.
Yeah, online, it's very hard to manage tone. For people to know what your facial expression was when you were typing those words and what you're, and what you mean. So one-on-one groups of people in person, those are the recommended modes. So as you do that, few mistakes to avoid. And they're hard to avoid, by the way, when you start talking about things that when you're talking to someone you agree with and you start to disagree with them, it can be very delicate. And so just things to think about. No one will be perfect with it, but things to think about. Pay attention to coming across as judgmental or more enlightened, like saying something like, you're stereotyping others, something I am not. Coming across as defensive of the other side, like, why are you being so nasty to them? Ease up, it might push someone away. Being contemptuous of both sides, that can be an easy out, like, everyone's crazy. Democrats and Republicans are both terrible. Well, that's just creating a third pole. It's not inspiring understanding. Getting caught up in defending particular leaders or fringe groups. These skills are really not about attacking particular policies or those disagreements are important. This is about how we think about and talk about the general others. Those who didn't vote for the candidate today, all the people who didn't vote for the candidates that I voted for, a broad swath of people. So, LAP, this is the Brave Angels terminology. There's all kinds of different ways to talk about it. This is just our quick way of remembering LAPD. Okay, how does LAPD work? The first thing is to listen. It was what you were saying earlier, what Elizabeth was saying earlier. To listen. When you do that, turn off your arguing mindset. It's not preparing to rebut. Just trying to process exactly what is being said. When you're doing it, listen for people's values and emotions. Agree where you can. Ask questions to clarify so that you get it, so you know what it is that they're actually saying. And then after you've listened and acknowledged, the second piece is acknowledge. I'll go back to this. This acknowledge is when you're listening, you are listening, not prepared to rebut, but prepared to acknowledge. To paraphrase back to them what it is they said. What listening with that energy and then acknowledging back does is it confirms that you are a viable conversational partner. You're willing to hear, actually listen to what's being said, and you've proven that you have heard. When you've signaled that to someone in a way that they process and recognize back to you, now you're in a conversation. This isn't a competition of ideas. Now we're talking to each other, not shouting at each other. So acknowledge is the second piece. After you acknowledge, this seems to be fairly type of training. River Angels suggest the pivot. Listening and acknowledging is about preparing the ground to share your perspective. Often you jump straight to the perspective, and maybe the ground isn't ready to receive what it is we have to say. That person is not willing to hear, they're triggered, they're afraid, whatever it is. Or just not ready for it. So listen to what they have to say, acknowledge it. Then we've proven that we're a viable partner for conversation, and then we say to this person, I have something to offer to the conversation. I'd like to take the conversation somewhere. I would like to speak about something I know about. Are you ready to hear this? And you want to check, because if the ground has not been prepared for you to speak, what's the point? It's just gonna go right over their head or bounce back at you with, some vitriol or something. So you just want to check. So it can be useful actually when doing your pivot to literally ask, would you be willing to hear this about this article I read? Something like that.
So this is for like-minded people though, right? This is to help other people think more the way you're teaching us to think, right?
That's right. We're talking about people you agree with. Next week, we're gonna review these same things. We're
Right.
gonna apply them to talking to the other side. If I'm noticing in a conversation that the person I'm talking to is taking it into a polarizing place, talking about those people or calling them idiots or saying like, yeah, everyone must be stupid on that side. Or they're just, they're only doing it for this negative reason. They're all that way. Well, I'm about to say something they may not be ready to hear. They may not want to hear, it may be difficult for them to hear. So it's still a little bit of an opposition at that point, but it is someone with whom I agree generally. Trying to introduce as a perspective about categorizing the other side. I'm with them on the policies, but I'm gonna say something that might be a little difficult to hear. So I want to make sure that they're ready to hear something like that. So examples. I'm with you on being very concerned about what's going on. Can I throw in a perspective? That would be a pivot. I haven't launched into the perspective yet. I'm just checking to see. I've been learning more about how people with other perspectives are thinking about these issues. You want to hear about them? Something like that. And you have to put it in your own language. And you have to put it in the language that you would use with that particular person. Otherwise, they'll be like, have you been to a Braver Angels workshop or something? Like, not even gonna listen to you. So put it in your own language, and that's what we'll practice when we get to the practicing part of it. Generally, think of it as like you're in traffic and you're putting your turn signal on. You haven't turned yet, but you're saying, I'd like to go over here, and I'm alerting you to that. Okay. And then once you've gotten a go ahead, once you see the coast is clear, once the person is signaling, like, sure, yeah, no, that sounds interesting, or like, okay, go ahead. You can decide how you want to interface with that, but if you get the go ahead, then it's time to share your perspective. There are 5 ways that we categorize that are beneficial for doing this. These perspectives that you can offer that are depolarizing perspective. Okay. 1, variation perspective. I've been learning that not everyone on the other side thinks exactly that. For instance, it's more complicated. I'm seeing more complexity in why people support that idea. I notice it's not just because they're uninformed, for instance. And then you would offer your experience where you've noticed that, if you had that experience, you just tell them how that came about for you. Noticing they're different, that people come from different backgrounds. Like, yeah, I totally find myself judging them for supporting blank. But I recognize I haven't been in their shoes. I wonder if I had the same experiences they had, if I wouldn't support exactly what they supported. Doesn't say I agree with it now, just if I were them, maybe I feel the same way, maybe I support that candidate or policy. Our side's not perfect. I don't agree with them on this, but our side has at times been overly aligned. For instance. Just recognizing the truth of it. And then not useful to dismiss them. Because that just increases polarization. They put us down, we put them down, nothing's working in this country, I've got to come to the conclusion, we're just gonna have to understand and respect each other more if we're gonna solve the problems. That our country faces, we're gonna need to understand each other. That can be a hard one. So when you're doing this. Expect pushback, because you're bringing up something that doesn't go with the party line necessarily. Or it seems like it's not going with the party line. So you might get wait a minute, are you defending so-and-so? Are you saying it doesn't matter that, that may be the response? When that happens, it's just an invitation to start again with listening. Only one about that. You're afraid about that I'm gonna go to the other side and then you can respond to whatever it is that they're worried about. You may need to explicitly reassure, oh, no, we're not talking about the policy, we agree about the policy. I'm talking about people on the other side and things I notice about them. And if you get that this person is not interested in the nuance that you're bringing to the conversation, well, then it's time to stop. Because that's just going to increase the polarization. It's not to distress your conversational partner, it will not be constructive. So you just recognize, okay, this we're not open to that. All of this stuff is a way to take the people with whom we are connecting and are able to speak. And to include those others into that world of people who we're able to connect with and speak, even though we disagree. If I push someone to hey, stop stereotyping, and we start going to war with each other about their stereotyping, well, now I'm getting cut off the group of people that we can talk, where we can talk and understand each other. So the whole idea of all of these skills is to bring more people into conversation and to have more people with whom I'm able to speak. So if I sense that this person is just not willing to go there, let it go. Stay in relationship with them. Keep it close. There may come another opportunity sometime down the road. And as long as you are in their world with your own opinions about polarization, those will resonate. You don't have to necessarily go and correct people. These skills are not about forcing other people to come to different conclusions about people. These are ways to share what we've learned about our own world and the way we're moving in the world with less polarization. And that will have a natural effect on the people that we interface with, especially if we remain understanding of them. So this is not, all these skills will have examples of talking to the people we agree with, exposing them to new ideas, but it's really just presenting a new idea, letting it be there so that person can choose to change their own mind about that person. We're not doing the changing of the mind. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah,
How do you get the red people here?
that's a great question.
I mean, how do you do that?
Well, I don't have an answer to that question, honestly.
I mean, what's the normal progression when you do one of these three-part? You always have red and blue people at the end?
Yes, our red-blue workshops, they're just inviting reds and blues to do it. And so you need a community that has a collection of people who identify as red and people who identify as blue, who are willing to come to a workshop to talk about finding common ground.
And
And we'll talk a little bit about the sign up after the presentation
okay.
piece of it too. We are a pretty purple congregation, you know, so we haven't self-identified here, but I suspect we're probably a mix as well between blue and red. You know, so I think the first step is doing things like this and inviting people to conversation.
Yeah, it's safe to assume that there's a diversity of political opinion even in this room. And that, yeah, within the congregation. Brave Angels, generally, we're a national organization, and we have online Zoom workshops that are attended by 150 people sometimes. And so those tend to be easy to collect, people from both sides of the aisle. And really, what we try to do is find communities that are purple or that can attract people from both sides of the aisle to those things, to those workshops. That's what we do. So there we go. Expect pushback. You can repeat the lap skills and reassure people that you're still with them, and if you're not getting anywhere, exit for the sake of depolarization and stay in relationship with those people. So Marianne and I will do a little demonstration about how this works. We've got our scripts. Yeah, I printed mine, yeah. So,
It's going to be an Oscar-winning performance.
yeah, exactly. So this is kind of like an indication of how it goes. I think I didn't come up with modification.
Oh, did you? Okay.
So, yeah,
And you're just watching stuff with the wires and everything.
thank you. Okay, so this is,
Drop the plug.
so Marianne's gonna play someone who's coming at it from a polarizing point of view, and I'm just gonna demonstrate how these skills work. And then we'll talk about it. We're gonna do it as a blue talking to a blue, and then we'll do it as a red talking to a red. What did I give you? Did I give you the blue? Oh, you have the red, what do you have? Let's see, it's not, you have the red, oh wait, here we go. Take this one too.
Okay.
We'll do the blue, talking to blue, and the red talking to red. Okay?
Yeah, this is.
Let's see how it is. Okay,
I'm so upset about these horrible school shootings. The Republicans in Congress get their campaign funds from the gun lobby, and the rest of the Republicans act like they'd rather see kids get killed than support the simplest gun control measures.
yeah, I'm upset. We can't agree on even basic gun regulations to keep our schools and communities safer.
Agreed. All those gun nuts are putting their personal hobby over the safety of our children. I've got relatives in that camp and I just don't get it.
Yeah, I've had trouble understanding the other side too. So I've been trying to step back and listen and read about where they're coming from.
Well, where could they be coming from except for willful ignorance?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I started too. Can I share a couple of views with you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, what I've been learning is that gun rights folks come from a lot of different places. Some of them grew up with guns and it's part of their family culture. Some fear for their safety and guns make them feel safer. For some, it's mostly about the Second Amendment, which to them represents personal freedom and from government overreach. All these different groups have different ideas about appropriate regulation of guns. Of course, we mostly hear about the ones who oppose virtually all the regulations.
Yeah, but who in the world can oppose bans on weapons of war in the hands of ordinary people and keeping guns away from people who are mentally unstable?
From what I'm learning, I think there are a lot of gun owners who would agree with you about semi-automatic weapons and people who are mentally unstable. There's some people on the other side who want to be reassured that we just don't want to take their personal guns.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Okay, so there's an example. This is a script. If you were to try, like, it wouldn't go that way. But it just gives you an example of kind of the types of moves, okay? It's just a quick way of seeing it in action. Okay, here it is. If I was a red talking to a red about the same issue.
The Democrats in Congress are playing on people's fears after these terrible school shootings. And the rest of those liberals seem determined to force us to accept government control all of our lives. They must know that only the tiniest fraction of guns are used to hurt people. They want to start with the Second Amendment and then take away our First Amendment and free speech, and if it's not politically correct, and we just can't let them get away with that.
I'm with you on the Second Amendment. It's in the Bill of Rights for a reason, and I'm worried that that's threatened right now.
Right. Liberals know what they're doing to our freedoms.
Can I offer you another thought about this?
I suppose.
I've talked to some liberals who surprised me on the gun issue, so I'm starting to think about it a little differently.
What they say.
The ones I talk to respect the Second Amendment, and some of them are even gun owners. I'm sure there are rabid anti-gun liberals out there, but I now think there are a lot of reasonable liberals who want things like gun safety programs and keeping guns out of the hands of people who are mentally unstable or spouse abusers. Many on our side agree with those ideas.
Well, if they're reasonable, then why aren't they speaking out against the crazies on their side?
Well, I wish they would. And I noticed there are some crazies on our side. But most of us are closer to a sensible middle than we realize. At least that's what I've come to believe.
Well, I hope you're right.
So, thank you very much.
Yeah, boys in here too, where we're like.
Yeah,
down with-
what are the different skills that happen there, right? Yeah.
You stayed calm, that was good.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
That's the part.
That always helps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see them in there?
Yeah.
Listen, there were a couple points in there, but I just said back to them, yeah, oh yeah, I feel the same way, I totally get that too. And then the pivots were pretty ham-handed in this.
You wanna hear about it, yeah.
But there they are, you know, you'd say it in your own way, the way you talk to that particular person. And then to give a perspective. And the important thing about the perspective is that it's really delivered from a sense of it's not making big, huge truth statements. It's what I read, how I'm seeing it, what I'm learning, how I look at it. Not, you should look at it this way,
Mhm.
this is the truth, only a reasonable person would look at it like this.
Mhm.
Make sense?
Mhm.
Okay. Give them plenty of room.
To illustrate what Mike said, but I'm gonna emphasize one point. It's never gonna go this easy. Sometimes you go, listen, acknowledge, listen, acknowledge, listen, acknowledge, and then I may have to pivot like 4 or 5 times before you don't want to ever jump in before you get that some sort of acknowledgement, even if it's like, well, whatever, go ahead. But because if they do not give you some sort of acknowledgement, they are absolutely, Mike said, laying the groundwork for listening, and that's not gonna happen.
Okay,
Okay,
so don't push through LAPP. If LA, you can't get to A, then you just give up.
If you don't get the yes, after you pivot, if you don't get some sort of yes, go back to LNA. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
yeah, there it is. And also, when we talk about exiting a conversation, you're not getting anywhere with somebody. I like to leave after acknowledge. So if I've gone all the way down here, I've pivoted, I'm not getting anywhere, or maybe I've made the mistake of launching into my perspective and I've done, deer in the headlights from the other side, or maybe an attack back at me and this is not going where I want to go. Okay, time to exit the conversation. My mode of exiting a conversation is to go back to listen, back to acknowledge, and then out.
Can I tell one thing? There was a really good thing came up in a workshop I did not too long ago. And somebody asked the question, what if somebody's just going like on and on and on and on and you can't even get a word in edgewise? And is it okay to interrupt? Like, yeah, generally we say don't interrupt people. But what we're kind of playing around with in the role play, it's probably okay to do something like, hang on a second. And if the pivot could be, there's a lot going on in there. Can I make sure I understand what you're saying? Use that as a chance to acknowledge. And then the person starts to like, oh yeah, they're listening to me. They may go right back into their laundry list of grievances or opinions. But you also might use that as an opportunity to say, to sneak in a pivot and go like, okay, I have some opinions about this too. You go ahead and I'll get back to them. Can I talk to that later? They may tell you talk to it now. Or they may tell you, okay, let me finish first. And then, but then you've at least planted the seed that like you would like to see.
Okay? All right, so now we'll practice those skills. This is your chance now. So we just did our back and forth, but I'm gonna give you a new prompt. I'm gonna do one for reds and I'm gonna do one for blues. Feel free to practice with either one. I'll play the polarizer. I'll read this thing out loud to you. I think it's in your participant guide, actually, too, so you can refer to it when it comes time to actually write your statement. And maybe just confirm that that's the case. Yes, it is, part 5. But for now, just listen, because it'll give you the listen skill, and then you'll use your participant guide to refer to it when you're doing your practice. Okay? Again, we're depolarizing ourselves and helping and getting an opportunity for like-minded people to depolarize themselves. We are not depolarizing them. We're just going to offer a perspective that they could use to depolarize themselves. And so you'll, as you hear this, you'll be listening so that you'll be able to make an acknowledged statement and then a pivot and a perspective. And then when we do it, you'll make your own statements and then you'll share them with your small groups, okay? So the scenario is this, large political rally, lots of people with different viewpoints meeting together, large range of polarized attitudes in that meeting, okay? The practice topic is the size and regulatory powers of the federal government. That's what we're going to talk about here. Blues in general favor a more activist federal government in scope and regulatory authority. Reds in general favor a more limited role for federal government and emphasize the downside of regulation. Each side is subjected to disparaging stereotypes on these issues. The scenario is also, there's in 5. So starting with the blue side, I'll launch into what a polarized blue might say. And I'll do the same for reds. Listen and acknowledge. So here we go. After I've done this, and I'll do it for both, then you'll write down your acknowledged statement. Okay, right, here comes the blues, speaking to blues. Conservatives say they're for limited government, but what they really want is for the rich to get richer. And the best way to do that is to take from the poor and working class people. They live in a society of winners and losers. And with the winners deserving most of the pie and the losers being blamed for their own misfortune, even though the winners usually start out with lots of advantages. Reds are basically heartless about the poor and would strip away the social safety net if they could get away with it. What amazes me is how many Americans get duped by this conservative approach to government. That's the blue talking to a blue. And here's a red talking to a red on the same issue. Liberals say they want the federal government to provide opportunities for people on the margins, but they're hypocrites. They know what these welfare programs do. They trap millions of people into dependency on the government. But that means it's more votes for their party, and the government gets bigger and bigger. Blues want to create a society where everyone gets the same outcomes in life, no matter how much effort they put into their own success. When they talk about equality, blues mean equality of outcome and not equality of opportunity. Put the blues in charge, they'll crush personal initiative and ruin the economy. What amazes me is how many Americans get duped by this liberal approach to government. Okay? So now, that was blue and the red. Now take a moment and write an acknowledged statement referring to the rant on your participant guide. Write down word for word what you would say in a conversation in response to what's there. We'll give you 2 minutes for that, and then when 2 minutes is up, I'll let you know, and then break into your small groups and share your acknowledged statements. Okay, let's hear a few acknowledged statements. Starting with the blue polarizer one. just reading that as the end, going into it, and then someone can come in with their acknowledged statement. So they say they're for small government, and they just want the rich to get richer at the expense of the poor. What amazes me is how many Americans get duped by this conservative approach to government. Who's got an acknowledged statement for that?
I've got one.
Okay,
What I'm hearing you say is the Reds only care about themselves and believe in a dog eats dog world.
awesome. Yeah. What I love about that is that you put it in your own words, you paraphrase it, which shows that you're really listening. If you just parroted it back word for word, maybe you weren't listening, maybe you just logged the words and just put them back out. But to assimilate them into your own language shows that you've processed what they said, and awesome, thank you. Who else?
So I don't know why, but I went to a place of imagining that the person was really virulent about things.
Okay.
And so I didn't want to say anything that was at all related to what they said.
Okay,
So I chose to say, I hear what you are saying, and I have moments of seeing some of the same things you are seeing, just to sort of, because, and I think I was channeling moments when I felt attacked
sure,
and just wanted to
yeah,
sort of try to smooth, you know.
because
create space.
because it's too hard to actually just put the words
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
You found another strategy for addressing that, yeah, Mary Ann?
So, I think Mike probably said that this is all based on marriage and family counseling.
Yeah.
skills, and Bill Doherty, who's our founder, will say, it's always say, somebody like really passionate and virulent, like you said, it's always acknowledgement, say, I see you're really passionate about this, or I, you know, I can tell you're really concerned.
Yeah.
And just leave it like that, because, you know, you're probably not gonna get them down off the ledge, other than mirroring calming behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah, way to support yourself with that.
I said kind of along the same lines. I understand why you feel that way. I shared some of your thoughts about the outcomes in their policies.
Right. Yeah. Those are great ways to go if that's what best you can do emotionally. That's care of yourself, stay in the conversation and stick with that person. It's a great strategy for dealing with that. And if you can, when you can, if you can say back to the person, summarize what they're saying in a way that they would say, you know what? I wish I had put it that way. Then they'll really know that you're a viable conversational partner. That you're not just waiting to pounce. That you haven't just said the facile thing to keep the thing moving. But you do what you can. So thank you for that example. One of the beautiful things about this acknowledged statement is its power to change my mind. When I am really listening to someone and I'm looking for a way to paraphrase it back to them, especially when I do what Debbie did and run it through my own processor and let it come out in my own words. As I'm speaking back to them what their position is, interestingly enough, it's not as crazy as it sounded, you know, when I was thinking about it before. And I'm can find the humanity in it because my acknowledged statement is coming from my own humanity, my own ideas, my own history, my own feeling. I'm putting it through that mill and back to them. This just helps me to connect with that person. And what they're saying. And I've had the direct experience. They would go, oh, well, wait a minute. You know, that I was just reacting to it, but now that I say it back, I'm actually seeing it in a different light, and now I'm more open. Okay. Anybody else have one?
I tended to listen for, it was, you know, very complex with a lot of different points. I tended to listen for the thing where I was finding some agreements.
Great,
And acknowledge that specifically.
amazing.
Is that too specific too soon?
I wouldn't say so, no. I'd say if you can identify a place of agreement, speak it. Did you write a statement that included that? Would you read it for everyone?
I hear what you're saying. I get really frustrated when I hear people being blamed for their own misfortune,
Amazing.
because that was one of the statements in the middle of it.
Yeah, there you go. We're in this together. I see what you're talking about and I'm with you. Very cool. Okay. Okay, so we have a scheduled stretch. If anyone wants to get up and stretch, if they need it, we have time for that.
1 minute.
Well, only 1 minute though. Yeah, so you're invited. I'm already standing, so I'm okay, but anyone who would like to, please go ahead. It sounds like we're okay, just continue. Huh?
Snack break, if anybody's.
Snack break.
Snack.
Okay, sounds like we're moving on. Okay, cool. Now, let's practice the pivot skill. You've listened, you've acknowledged. We're gonna stick with this same thing, so you can keep the statement open and keep your acknowledge open. Try a pivot thing. Once you've acknowledged it, now write the pivot as you would say it. Just imagine you're talking to someone you know. As you would say, some indication that you would like to offer a perspective. And maybe ask if it's okay with them in some, okay? Couple of minutes to write that. Go ahead and do that. Your pivot statement. Just a couple of words signaling you'd like to share a perspective? Huh?
If I could, right,
Yeah, let's see.
I just said, well, I hear you, but I have a bit of a different take on that. Is it okay if I put it out there?
Amazing. Yeah. And is it okay if I put it out there? Then you get a clear indication. You'll get a yes or a no, or someone barreling on, continuing, you'll have your answer.
I think that was.
Oh,
Nat,
I've given this some thought. Because I'm concerned about how this issue has divided us. Mind if I share what I've learned?
yeah, I've given it thought. And both of those, putting it in your own perspective. I'm looking at this thing this way. You want to hear that? Give it a thought. Anyone else? Well, those are great examples, and I assume everybody wrote one like that. See, I can make any meaning I want. I'm just gonna make it up, so I may as well make up what I'd like to do. Okay, so now let's move to the perspective. This is after your pivot. This will be the time. And now the perspective is about, it's you talking to someone who you agree with politically about those people. So it's not launching into a discussion about the topic itself. What you agree with, what you don't, your way of looking at the size of government. For today's workshop, next week's workshop will be about how to talk about the issue. To someone you disagree with. This is how to talk to someone you agree with about how they're framing those people and how you're thinking about those people. Questions about that? Understood? Okay. Remember that we got these things to keep in mind, focus on the stereotype and disdaining. Remember that they're the other side, these are things to, going back and reviewing, things to think about. The other side is more varied than we recognize. Their positions and their lives are more complicated. They come from different backgrounds than we do. So just have humility about what we know and, the perfection of our own side. And it's not useful to dismiss. So those are things we can include in our perspective statement that's addressing what the polarizing energy is from the person we're talking to. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of minutes to write a perspective statement, and then this time we will go back into groups and discuss them. Okay, so go ahead, a couple of minutes to write, and then I'll tell you when those minutes are done, and then we can go into your groups. Thanks. Or would share theirs for the benefit of the group.
Okay, Mike.
Okay, you can do it, thank you.
I have to say, I could not do one for the blues, because I'm sorry, this is why I'm here, because I agree with everything the blue polarizers said.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Anyway, so I did it for the reds, okay?
Okay, so
Okay,
to
so
practice
this
the
is-
skill, fine.
Okay, maybe the blues are not talking about a quality of outcome, but a quality of opportunity, and we should take another look at how to achieve this.
Okay, so having a blue perspective, you were able to respond to the reds with something that was
Yeah, well,
more understanding of the blue position. To offer them something to
Yeah.
think about.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Great. And then there's an opportunity to practice being able to do that for the other side.
I have to work on that.
Yeah,
There
And
you
that-
go.
and honestly, that'll come from any effort that you put into learning more about their position in ways that you can understand as legitimate. By having conversations with people who are reds and really listening, doing the L and the A with them. Will reveal things to you about their positions and particularly about them as people. Not just about their positions. That you could offer to a fellow blue when they start to speak in polarizing ways. It's an opportunity. But a good thing to recognize, where it is. Anyone else?
I give a personal story.
Great,
So I said, I said, my dad worked all his life. And Shaw could have used a helping hand. I would not have said that he lacked personal initiative. So that's how I sort of responded to the red
okay.
statement.
Oh, how you respond to the red statement, okay, great,
That's too aggressive.
okay. So. The exercise, and I encourage you to try this when you get a chance, is speaking to the side you agree with. About their characterization of the other side. Does someone have one of those?
I said, I think we have to find common ground that we can agree on. And see them as human beings rather than demonizing the other side.
Thank you. Here's an example. Just not getting into debating the point, but just you heard some things that they were saying about those people. And you offered a perspective that had more nuance to an understanding of those people than was being offered by the original statement. Does anyone else have one of those?
There are reds who are poor who have benefited from the social safety net and are vocal about their individual and the collective need for programs like Medicaid, SNAP, and others.
Right. And if you could add something to that when you're in where it puts it in an I statement, like
Yeah.
I found this, I read this somewhere, I know someone
And
who,
that's, I pressed my pivot statement.
Oh, good.
Lead led in.
great, so your pivot statement had,
Yeah.
amazing, great. Anyone else?
Most people I've met are coming from their own experience. They don't see themselves as heartless or uncaring.
Good thing to point out. Yeah, great question. Would they say they're heartless and uncaring? That's that in the same vein as the eavesdropper thought experiment. If they were hearing me talk right now, would they agree I am heartless and uncaring? It's a good signal that maybe you're not representing them, certainly not representing them in a depolarizing way.
I have, well, we have moderates and liberals on our side. There are many angles to consider and arguments to work out, but we all want the same thing in the end.
Yeah, and again, if you can add like I see it that way, or that I found that, or I read something. Because those declarations of the truth and the way it is have a tendency to not be heard as well as the I statements. Anyone else? All right, those were fantastic. Thank you, all of them. And I love to do the assignment, to be like, okay, I can't do it that way, but I'm gonna do it this way. So you get some to exercise in the use of the tool. So thank you. Okay, so when you do this, you offer that perspective. In an ideal world, they go, you've enlightened me and now everything's different. And I'm so glad I talked to you and, thank you for,
Wait till I get home.
thank you for setting me straight, right? But that's unfortunately not really reasonable to expect. Because we're talking about things that are really passionate for people and there's a lot of fear involved in there, a lot of feelings involved, and there's a lot of history involved, and people have had experiences that inform those things, and they're not gonna be super quick to come off of the way they're looking at things, and that's just the way it is. And so when that happens, when you offer your point of view, you can expect some pushback. Again, go to listen when you get the pushback. As much as you can, acknowledge what you've heard, and then find a way to connect with it. Share a story, wonderful example. And then to reassure them that you're still with them, because it could seem immediately like if you're not just party line and saying, yeah, to everything that's being said in a polarizing environment, that must mean you're all the way on the other side, on the opposite end of the chasm. Because that's just where we get with our, that's the effect of polarization. So we just have to stick with people. And with ourselves when that's going on. In order to do this, you need to listen carefully to what they're objecting to in your perspective. Like, are you excusing bad behavior of the other side, or just whatever the details, listen to what they're saying. And then you'll need to reassure them. So to reassure, when a like-minded person senses that you're continuing to come back with this new perspective you developed, the conversation can make you look like you're a traitor. Are you actually defending those people? You can reassure them. So statements like, well, let me be clear, right? We're still on the same page with the policy. I'm talking about the people. I just don't think demonizing the other side is helping anyone, something like that. And it's again, that's an I statement. This is where I'm sitting with it. And then if you keep pushing, it's time to exit. And like we were talking about earlier, listen, acknowledge, listen, get through to the perspective. That's too much. You can tell this conversation isn't going anywhere. My advice is to go back to listen, back to acknowledge. And when your acknowledgement has been heard, like, we're agreeing about this, I hear what you're talking about, this is what you're saying, right? And they say yes. Great. That's a good way to exit. So there's another role play that we can show here, and this one we will go through and identify the different skills as we go through it. And I got mine. Okay, so we'll go through it. We'll pause for like, which thing are we hearing now? Okay.
Is this a clear?
Yes, and you will be graded.
You will be graded.
No,
Shame
right
if
here.
shame if you get it wrong. Okay. There we go. I've been trying to better understand conservatives. One thing that's helped me is reading the National Review, which has thoughtful articles along with some that trouble me. I've come to see a lot of variety in conservative thinking, some of which actually I find interesting.
Come on, most Reds have never read the National Review. They get their news from right-wing TV and end up misinformed and unreasonable.
That's the pushback you can accept. You can expect. It's like, just not gonna, you're not gonna, well, you enlighten me, okay? Okay, I hear that a lot more people watch right-wing TV than read serious magazines. And you think that most conservatives are not very reasonable.
Exactly.
So what was that? Which skill was that?
Listen.
That was it.
That was the acknowledging, yeah. And I got an exactly, which is good. That means I I'm on the right track. That's confirmation that I'm hearing her the way she wants to be heard. And I didn't say anything that I don't agree with. That's what you're saying. And then I continue. Well, the shift for me was starting to listen and read what thoughtful conservatives are saying. I realized that there are a lot more of them out there than I thought, and sometimes they make some good points.
Wait a minute, why are you defending them? Are there no differences between our side and their side? Is it all just, well, there are good ideas on both sides and it doesn't matter if you're liberal or conservative?
So I offered a perspective again, and I got pushback again. So now it's time to listen and acknowledge again. You're worried I've gone over to the dark side. I see how it would sound that way. Let me be clear, and now this is the reassurance. Let me be clear, I'm still devoted to the policies we agree on. It's just that while I don't agree with them, I'm seeing conservatives and their ideas as more complex and varied than I had realized.
Okay, well, that is a little different. You mean that people themselves are complex and their ideas are varied?
Yeah. And recognizing that makes me feel a little better about my neighbors. And we still disagree, but it's just a disagreement with a little hope in it. Okay, so. So that's an example of how to navigate that situation. Get the pushback, just go back into the listening, acknowledge, stick with it, and stay in what I'm trying to impart. And I had a partner who was willing to listen, and so we continued that conversation. She had just become intransigent, like, get out of my house. You know? I would go back to something we both agree on. Find that and be like, okay, and I'll go. Thank you, Mary. Any questions on that? All right, so before we finish up, I'd like to share a few final Braver Angels thoughts about being a depolarizer. So it's just, to our opinion, it's just about being pragmatic about the future. Like if I really care about the policies, positions, and issues that are important to me, and I really want them furthered, I would prefer a depolarized world. Because in a depolarized world, I can speak to the other side in a way that they can hear me. In a polarized world, I can't. So it actually furthers my own agenda to be depolarized. It's not gonna happen in a second. It's not gonna happen the first time you talk to somebody. But establishing yourself as a viable conversational partner with the people you disagree with will give you access to them over time. And when you do your, this is that thing, doing your knowledge statement, you win with your knowledge statement. If someone goes, oh my God, that's exactly how I should have put it. That said it clearer than I meant. That's clear, okay? And this is an interesting one. To notice within you the thing that's, if you're a liberal, the parts of you that are conservative, parts of you that cling to tradition, maybe not politically, maybe in your family or something, where you can recognize where that impetus comes from. And if you're conservative, where you would like help from organizations or from a government, where you're grateful that there is a government there to help. To get in touch with your inner opposite. Helps with the depolarizing. So these last little steps, we're going to, there's an evaluation of all of these things, and Braver Angels really looks at them and really uses them for the development and the continuous development of our programs. And so we invite you and actually ask you, implore you work through this, evaluation here, please. You can access it through that QR code on your phone, and it's an online thing. And then when that's over, one last thing, checking in, and then talking about other Braver Angels things that we've got, available, and then we'll be done. Okay? So if you would, please do us the favor of filling out this evaluation.
So where the QR code is on.
So the QR code's right here, you can actually point your phone here, and the QR codes on the, participant guide are for other resources. And, they wouldn't correspond with this, evaluation form.
Can we do it this time?
Yeah, but if you need to, you can zoom in, and, what's that?
My phone's in my car.
Your phone's in your car, okay.
Also smartphone.
Well, and I can't do that at
You can-
all.
you
If
can
you'd
write
like
down the
to
link
find the
and do it
link
later.
for me or whatever.
Give the camera.
Yeah, someone might be able to help you, I can help you if you'd like. Want some help? Okay.
Yeah. Can I say you hold it?
Yeah, so, yeah, Mary Ann and I can help.
I have to do the QR.
Yeah, no, it's-
So,
So you see that yellow button there? You can press that yellow button, it'll take you right to it. See that?
oh, that little button.
Yeah.
And it's gonna.
And it's gonna come up.
From way.
Yeah, you're crazy.
Yeah.
And then it should come up.
Oh. It will not. At least that's on my computer, yeah, here it comes.
And we're just gonna at least get it started. We don't necessarily have to complete it, but at least we'll be on your phone, you can complete it later. Okay? So, you need help with it?
Just one.
There it is.
I do, but it went in here.
Oh, because I just needed to do, I needed to be looking over there.
Okay, now I lost it.
Can I help?
It's a new phone and we are not friends.
Let me help.
It's changed stuff, yeah.
And there it is, and then
I need to answer
I
it.
agree to participate or not.
You had pressed.
You can press either I agree to participate or I do not.
Oh, it's, it's got a
Did you do
good,
that already?
no, it's well.
Yeah, so the password for Wi-Fi is God is good, capital G for God.
And that evaluation takes, it's not the quickest. It's 5 minutes. So seems like most of us have got it open on our phones and started, so you can continue that later if you want. In the interest of time, we might continue. Okay. And if you want to continue, filling it out, please do.
Answering. Meetings, I just.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead and just finish, and then when you're done,
Oh,
Well-
see, it's gone. Hello. So.
As people wrap up. What are you taking away from today? And any questions you have about what we've covered, anything we can answer for you?
I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit,
Yeah.
but next week, is it gonna be about the same length?
It's
So I can
not.
plan ahead?
No, it's not, and apologies about that. TJ just brought to my attention that you guys had hour and a half
Right.
for this. And from our end, we understood it to be a 3 hour. So,
Okay.
so just a misunderstanding there, and so apologies about that. Yeah, we just learned about that, a few minutes ago.
Yeah, this one's 3 hours, the last one's 3 hours, next week is 1.5.
Yeah, and it looks like your
Got it.
sheet was correct on the second too.
Yeah, so
yeah.
the sheet
Okay.
for, so this week apparently was supposed to be 3 hours, next week hour and a half. The week after, the red blue, that's also 3 hours.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks for asking, and apologies for the miscommunication. And thanks for staying. And we're getting you out of here early, because from our perspective, yeah.
So how does the red and blue work if you don't have any reds?
It doesn't really.
So we had talked about this briefly, and
Yeah.
feel free to jump in if
Please.
I say anything that's inaccurate.
Go right ahead.
So it, as Mike has just said, it doesn't unless we have an equal number of people, red and blue, signed up. Willing to kind of openly self-identify as one or the other. And to speak publicly within this kind of group from their side's perspective. We have a sign-up sheet, and what would be helpful is if you are willing to speak on your side. If we can get your name down, because if we don't have an equal number of people, then I don't see how we would be able.
Marianne, that's how I understand it. Is we
Yeah,
really don't have a red-blue workshop unless we have equal numbers of reds, blues.
that's absolutely correct. It's one of the feedback we get, especially from the people on the red side, is they feel that they don't like to come to Braver Angels events because they feel like they're gonna get ganged up on. Braver Angels as an organization does skew about 70% blue. And really try hard to keep our red recruitment up. So we don't want to bring anybody into a workshop where there's like 10 people staring at 3 people.
Right.
Over here. So if we have like 6 and 6 people sign up and like one, like say red doesn't show up, we will ask the blue, somebody to be an observer. We can have as many observers as you like, and the observers do get to weigh in at that very end. What did you learn just by watching, but mostly you're just an observer. We like to have equal number of groups. The ideal number is like 6 to 8. I've done it with history before. And it still works okay, and people still learn stuff, but like smaller than that, you're not getting even a good enough range of perspectives within, each
Yeah.
side.
And if you're doing there would be 8 participants.
Yeah.
And everyone else would be an observer.
Do you have, advice for us on how to talk to people about joining who are not?
No, exactly. No, thank you for bringing that up, because the one thing we say is like, it's very structured. Nobody's gonna get yelled at. The way the workshops are structured, no one can get out of hand. It's a very safe environment. And then I'd also encourage you to look up on the Braver Angels website, the main page, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, I think it's on the landing page. There's something that's called the Braver Angels Way. And there's like 10 points. I can even send it to TJ as well. It's like, we demand respect. We say that everybody's opinion is important. We never, and a lot of the stuff we learned today, we'll not put up with. So it's like if people go off on policy rants, they will be stopped. And that's what Mike and I are gonna do. We're gonna co-moderate that one. So I just reassure people that it is a safe environment. And I can tell you, I've done 4 or 5 Brave Angels workshops, the Red Blue workshops, or there's another one that's Common Ground where we like take an issue. Those are like even more profound, where I've had groups of people walk in the room and saying like, well, there's no way we're gonna agree on anything. I'm so sure of this, but I told somebody I'd show up, and by the end of the workshop, everybody's like, oh my God, we found 10 things to agree on abortion rights, or gay marriage, like really controversial topics. And be thanking the other side profusely, when like, that, I had no idea that we were gonna agree on anything at all. Like, who knew? And we're the moderators are always going like, yeah, we knew. We knew. That's what it's all about, yeah.
If we try to invite people, but we've all been through today and they haven't, is there something that sort of brings people sort of up to speed in the room?
Yeah, first of all, I sent, TJ, there's links, they're both of these, the courses are a little bit shorter than what we've done today, but both depolarizing, and it's called Skills for Bridging the Divide. That was the old name for workshop for next week. I have no idea why they changed it, but, as online offerings. So you can get through it in about 45 minutes, because there's no food for it.
So if they wanted to, they could go through that.
So
and
they
be
could
ready
get
for it.
caught up. We highly recommend at least doing that, the Skills for Disagreeing workshop, or Skills for Bridging the Divide workshop. I've never kicked anybody out for not having done the prerequisite, but Mike and I will both be a little bit firmer with those people if they do get out of line. And sometimes people who've been to the workshops to kind of help, they're like, excuse me, that was a stereotype. So it will, and it's a red blue, which is a little different than the common ground, so.
Yeah.
Less skills are needed, but, yeah, but it's very helpful to go through, and that's why I recommended to keep it. Even if you want to do more full talks, do them in this order, don't just jump right into the red blue as your starter.
Yeah, and I'll send out the link, probably on Mondays, and we'll have a chance to do it, but the PDF copy of the slideshow that was presented today, those links will be in that email as well. So if there's people that you know, that you want to encourage to come, feel free to share those materials with them.
Yeah, and even then, if we do the e-courses, the handouts are available, not the slides. But you'll get and all the information that's on the slides are also in the. That's why we do that way, so you don't have to take notes and you're just.
Cool. So we've answered questions.
I have a
Cool.
question.
Please.
I'm trying to imagine when I put this, what we did today in practice. I at a dinner party, you just bring it up and say, okay,
Well,
about this.
yeah, I mean, that's gonna be,
And let's have coffee and talk about. It doesn't.
so the stuff we talked about today is really designed to be used in real time when you're having a conversation. You're talking to someone you agree with, and that person launches off in all kinds of polarizing phrases about the other side. It's just one of those things you could do to bring an alternate perspective into that about the other side in the interest of depolarizing. That's what today was. So just in the natural flow of your day, you're having coffee with someone and they start talking about those stupid Republicans or those stupid Democrats. And
I
all,
spent 3 days with someone. I should have had this before.
then you have these things you can offer.
Can I add one more thing? So, Mike said we take these surveys really seriously, so I did a research project, we actually published something, and we took all the comments, and did some, quantitative analysis on it. The number one comment on all our surveys is, oh, I didn't realize this needs practice.
Yeah.
So
I didn't realize what.
It needs practice.
It takes practice to get good at this. And that's the other thing about, one of the QR codes, I think on the back page, says, do you want to join an alliance? If you want to think of alliances as they're like chapter meetings, and that's what they do at the alliance meetings, is get a group of people together and they'll pick a topic of the day, and then you can practice your skills. And we'll try to, pair people up with, people on the opposite sides, and like, here, talk about, the opposite, immigration today, and pair up with somebody on your opposite
And
side.
it's
And give you practice in that safe Braver Angels environment before you take it out into the wild.
And it's a great opportunity to get access. Someone was talking about how do I get access to a red? I don't have any access to any reds, we live in a blue world. The alliances are balanced. They have people from both sides. I attend the Illinois State Zoom Alliance, which is every third, I think it's the third Sunday night of every month. And there's reds and blues there, and like Mary Ann saying, put a topic out there. We go into Zoom breakout rooms and we practice what we preach and try it out. And you don't have to be a moderator or an Illinois coordinator to be a part of an alliance. You're just anyone, there are lots of people in there who don't do that kind of work. They just want to be a part of it and have that regular practice with people who are like-minded in wanting to be depolarized.
Yeah, the prerequisites for joining an alliance is be a member. It's all $12 a year. And having been to one workshop, so. We've all been to one workshop. And we're trying to, we have a Chicagoland Alliance and it's getting a little big and like people, you know, from even like Evanston are going, it's taking me too long to get downtown. So, I can't imagine what it's like coming from Winnetka. So we are trying to maybe we're gonna have like maybe a North Suburbs Alliance, a Western Suburbs Alliance, and, you know, just break it out a little bit. So, people can meet in person. Because that's, nothing beats in person.
And all these things we're talking about are this leads to the webpage on Braver Angel's website that details all the things we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes. So if you want to try to navigate that again. That'll take you there. Thank you very much. I know we've gone long, so people want to get out of here, and I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to do this work that I love so much. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you for caring so much about this. And we can ask DJ to take us out with a.
Sure, I'm just gonna say a very brief prayer and then we'll be done. So the Lord be with you. Let us pray. Holy and gracious God, holy and mighty, we give you thanks and praise for this day and for drawing us together. We ask that you help to open our hearts and our minds, that we may bridge the difficulties and differences within our communities, that we may embody the love of Christ shared through your Son. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Thank you all so much for being here today.